are so excited to talk to you this morning, Priscilla, about your fabulous documentary short. I am intrigued by it because I think so many of us, want to hear stories from the other side. We never hear really a lot about the lawyers and things like that. So can you share with us what inspired you to start this journey to do this particular subject?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Joy. I'm really excited to talk to you and your audience. So this film was really started and was inspired by my sister, who's one of the 5 lawyers, Araceli, because when I finished grad school and moved back to Southern California, as I was trying to get settled, I was working at her law firm. And that's where I saw just what it was like to do that kind of work right now under Trump. And as soon as I found out about her being a part of this group with Jose, Alma, Elizabeth, and Gladys, and just that amazing relationship that they have, and they're texting all day and emailing and calling each other, I just thought it was such a nice look into how someone handles such a difficult job, and building support systems, out of just your peers, and just being able to support each other in the kind of work that they do. So I personally have been interested in different sort of immigration issues or first generation issues in my work in the past, and I just felt like this added to that larger conversation, and I wanted to just create a portrait that showed something a little different, which I think is a big part of why we make documentary films, to show more to the story in a cinematic way. And so I just felt like there was this whole other side of it that not a lot of people have access to and get to see that. Even if you are someone going through the process, you're working with a lawyer. And so I felt like once I got the approval from all of them to do the project, that it would just be a look into something that people don't often get to see.
Yeah, it's very riveting because I cannot even imagine the trauma they go through on an emotional level when some of their clients don't get what they needed to get when the deportation happens. How did they even start that support group? Can you share a little bit about how that came about?
Oh yeah, yeah. So they actually all met kind of at different times, but they all connect at this big law firm in LA. So all of them worked there, and for them, essentially, that was like boot camp. It was a lot of work, very busy, big immigration law firm. And so they, having sort of gone through that process and being there, like supporting each other there, um, it's like a bond that they just continued as each one of them started to go off and start their solo practice. So I think the way I see it, it evolved over time. And then by the time I got involved, it had become something pretty solid, like a group, a text chain that's like constant. And so I know it started there. I know some of them met different ways. Jose Osorio and Elizabeth Uribe met at UC Hastings. Araceli and Elizabeth went to undergrad at UCLA together. I know Alma, they all worked together at different times. Like Alma and Elizabeth worked at that law firm, so did Gladys. Gladys and Alma, I think, were there for the longest, and have the most experience, I think, with that law firm. But yeah, so it was an evolution, I think, of how that group became so tight. But they all went through that boot camp, and they used to call themselves the Minions, and so it was like the Minion holiday party or lunch, and then they started trying to say, well, let's use something a bit more empowering. We're a group, we support each other. So then they either call themselves a minion, or it's the tribe, or they'll use different words just to mean that they're a group and they're working hard together.
I love it. I love the fact that they have a great support group like that because of all the trials and tribulations they had to go through. When do you think they started to notice a change in the laws with the new administration?
Yeah, that's a great question, because It's hard for me to know for sure, but from, fortunately, I had a lot of time to talk to them and so many amazing conversations. And I know that they saw these things happening before Trump. There was definitely issues even, under Obama. And because all of them have experienced it directly as children of immigrants, they've seen their parents go through it or family members since, their whole lives. So they have that insight. And then, but in turn, and so just the insight to kind of see how things are changing, and how some people were able to have amnesty in the past, or just different situations that they see firsthand in their families. But I would say that it was, in terms of the kinds of dangerous and very inhumane changes that were just outright anti-immigrant, I would say from the campaign, from the Trump's campaign, where he was running on a very anti-immigrant platform, they saw how dangerous that was. And I think right away when he came in, he started saying he was going to do things that were really bad for their clients and for them and their jobs. And he did. So I would say really early on, it was clear that this was not going to be good, that things were going to get bad very quickly.
How did they prepare themselves for this new journey? Were there things that they had to do specifically, that they had to relearn new laws? I mean, it seemed you touched a little bit about that in the documentary. Can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, no, I mean, that again, it's such a great question, because it's so relevant to why this has been so difficult for them. A law will change from one week to the next, and now they have to prepare a client and a case completely differently. Whatever argument they had no longer matters. Now they have to figure out another way to reunite this family or to seek asylum, because now, for example, if you served in the military, you can't get your paper status and papers for your parents after serving your country. And there's all these attacks that happened, that continue to happen. And it, the way it affects just the job is that, it's no longer the right form. They have to go online and fill out a whole new packet, come up with new arguments, find new precedent. There's also a lot of things that happened that had never happened before. In the film, actually, we talk about how Araceli's client was denied because he had an expired TPS. And that's something that hadn't really happened. And so that's why in the text messages, they're saying that's against precedent. Like, that shouldn't be happening. You can fight against that. And it just seems like normally that wouldn't have happened, and he could have, they could have moved forward with his case. He'd probably be with his family now. But because of that decision, that was a very just anti-humane, an inhumane decision to make that call when it didn't have to be that way, resulted in the family being separated, because he was tired of fighting the case. And I know that they dealt with that. And so that's a big reason why they're constantly talking, and they would text each other like, what's going on, the newest thing, changes. And what's great is that because they all have like different expertise and different levels of experience, and they're able to help each other through those things. Like, and we see a little bit of that in the film, asking each other for resources. Like, it's dangerous for an immigrant to ask for government resources. So what else could they do? And just so many other ways that they help each other, because they all individually just have so much knowledge and information to share. And it's just really great to see how they help each other, because it's really tough. Yes, is temporary protective status.
Got it.
And so that would be like, in the past, if you were coming to the United States because, there's drug violence in El Salvador or Mexico or anywhere, you could prove your case a bit more directly. They have sort of, I think it's like a list of categories. And basically what's been happening is like a list that maybe was this long is getting this big. It's the reasons you can seek asylum are drastically decreasing, and they have been for a long time. And it's not only asylum, it's like I mentioned, you know, if you served your country in the military, you can't uh, try to get papers for your parents anymore. There's just so many things like that. But that's what TPS is. There's been attack on DACA, which is the Dreamers Act. So these are
Right.
people who were brought really young. Um, and that was really scary for them. And a lot of that was going on too while I was filming, even though it's not really in the film. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot of different programs that have gone out the window that they used to rely on for their clients.
Filming these attorneys with the support group, what do you think was the most challenging for each one of them? I mean, I know it would probably take a long time to talk about this, but in a nutshell, what would you say, besides the heartache they felt, were things that really bothered them?
You know, of course, it would be hard for me to say for sure. I think what's really hard for her is that she's someone who's always really been on top of her game. She's got all this experience. She worked for Homeland Security. That's where she started her immigration career. So for her to be so knowledgeable in this area and to basically be knocked off her feet, it was a lot for her, you know, when they detained her client in front of her at a check-in. Like, that's a lot. To be basically have worked on both sides and to see like something like that happening. So I think that is really tough for her. And I mean, fortunately, they are all still practicing. They're all, you know, working now, doing amazing things. But it's hard. I know that they're constantly thinking about this, you know, in different ways. I think for Araceli, it's my sister. It's tough to feel, I think a lot of times it just feels so hopeless because it's just the system constantly working against them, against their clients. And I think it's just that feeling of being beat down. And I think they all feel that way. But I suppose that's kind of what we see in the film. For Elizabeth and Gladys and Jose, you know, I think it's a lot of the same. What makes it difficult is, you know, I think the disillusion, the sadness. Gladys talks about how she's afraid that it could tear apart her own family, which is true because, like I said, a lot of them have immigrant family members or friends. Like it's their community, and so you know, Gladys talks about how it's something she's afraid of. It can affect her directly.
You are part of a Mexican immigrant family. What were some of the things that you were experiencing on a personal level while doing this documentary?
Both of my parents are from Mexico and came here. Most of their family came, but we still have lots of family in Mexico. I think personally, you know, on the one hand, it's like I constantly have to check my own privilege of being here, of the fact that my family came at a time when it was very different. You know, my family didn't go through the difficulties that a lot of people are going through right now. And I felt like I had to be very aware of that. And also just personally that, you know, I don't have the same experiences as even my sisters. You know, I look very white and coming into a space and being aware of that and introducing myself to people who probably have had some pretty bad experiences. And so I think on the first level is that for me, but then really personally connecting with what I was doing with filming with the lawyers, with being there while they're having these meetings. Um, it's really heartbreaking to see the people who are experiencing family separation, who are worried about their relatives who are in detention. It's just heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to first see my sister go through that. Of course, I mean, she's my sister, and then through that to start this project and see the lawyers go through that. And of course, talk extensively about that experience, even though it's not in the film, about how it affects them, how it goes home with them. You know, like there's just so much, again, I wish I would have kept it, I could have kept in the film, but like, you know, I remember a really great conversation I also had with Jose about how it does keep him up at night. You know, he is constantly checking his phone too, and he want like, if he knows that a client is going through something, even if he's not working with them that day or the appointment they have or whatever, like it's on his mind. Like he could be home, but like it's always in the back of his mind. And it was just the way he spoke about that, just I'm sure relates to how they all felt. For me, it was tough, you know, as a filmmaker, as a documentarian, I have to constantly check in with myself and remind myself that people are trusting me to tell their stories, and that I need to do the best I can do with that responsibility, with that access. And so I know when I'm on set, it's that balance of being a professional but also being human, and getting the clues of when, you know, someone's done and they just need their space. And then when I go home and it's just me, it's, you know, thinking about it, watching the footage is always really tough. So personally, it's tough to see these things. And in my last film, I also interviewed immigrants who had just been released from detention centers. It's difficult, but I know they're going through something that I never have, and I have this opportunity to share their story. They trusted me. And so I really just have to tell myself, like, you need to do right by them, and um, think about the people who are going to get to see this.
What are you hoping that an audience member would take away when they see your film?
I hope that right now specifically, I hope that it gives them hope. I hope that they see this and think, you know, regardless of our differences or where we come from, like there is a fundamental belief in the United States being a great country that stands for so much, and thinking that that can be possible. I don't want to just say again, because it's not like, you know, in the last 4 years, the country changed. You know, there's lots of things this country has always pushed under the rug regarding racism and classism and so many other issues. But I think fundamentally, it's like having that hope. And so, you know, I think that that's a big part of it. But and especially right now, going towards the election, you know, that people feel that their vote matters, because it does. um, and I would say overall, I hope that people who go through that experience, who are either immigration lawyers or immigration professionals, feel some validation, like we see your struggle also. Because I think a lot of times they probably feel it's not really okay to show that, because they know it's more difficult for their clients. Their clients, it's basically life or death. And for them, it's a difficult job. I mean, I always think of it sort of like a doctor, you know, it's a tough job that they're doing. How much of that goes home with them? And um, not everything is under their control. So I hope that they feel validated in some ways, and like, you know, we see your struggle too, and it's also important, just like the struggle of the clients. And I also hope that people going through that themselves directly as immigrants see that there are amazing people who fight for them. And even if sometimes it doesn't seem that way because the system works against them, there's some amazing people who are fighting really hard. It's just that the system is really screwing everyone over. And so I really want to represent that. And I would say finally, as an educational piece, you know, a lot of people don't know that some families have to be separated for 20 or 30 years, and like someone hasn't seen their mom, you know, a grandma that hasn't met her kids. Like these things happen because that's the way the system works. That what it means to like do it the right way, like to go through the process. And so I also hope that it's enlightening for people who don't know too much about that. So happy to share that right now the film is online on NBC News through the Meet the Press showcase for about another week. And so that's just online, and through that, it's also available on Roku, Apple TV, and a lot of other digital platforms. You could just look up Status Pending or Meet the Press Showcase, and you can watch the film. And so that's one place. And I'm also really excited to share that starting October 25th, the film will also be available on Al Jazeera Witness online, and that will also have some international broadcasts. So you can watch it online on their website starting October 25th for a period of time, for about a month. And they're going to broadcast it at different times. So it'll be coming back. And that is a showcase. Witness is a documentary strand where they, each episode is a different film, an independently produced film that they've put together, curated as different episodes of this program. So I'm really honored to be a part of both of that. And, you know, everyone who gave the film a shot, you know, at film festivals and some of the amazing community screenings that we've had, mostly virtual. But it's just been really an honor to share the film. And I really hope people watch it, especially before the election.
I think they will. Well, congratulations. I do appreciate your time, your talent, what you've put out there. But before we end, can you share your social media platforms so people can follow you, find you, and join the journey?
Absolutely, thank you. So for the film, we're on Instagram at status pending film, on Twitter, status pending _, and on Facebook also as status pending film. And definitely check out the website, www.statuspendingfilm.com. And for me personally, I'm also on Instagram, and that is my full name, Priscilla Gonzalez Gainz, so it's a long one, and on Twitter as Priscilla G Sainz. So I would love to connect and share more about other things I'm working on, and just other updates about these issues. And thank you so much. Thank you for your time too, and for talking about the film and sharing it with your audience.
You're very welcome. I'm very proud of you. I'm so happy I got to chat with you and see your documentary, and it's wonderful. And I hope to see much more of your work as we move forward.
Thank you for your support.